The air was thick, heavy, wet. Every breath Solari took felt like breathing inside a warm mouth. She stepped carefully on the mossy ground of the forbidden jungle. Her silver feet barely made a sound. She was not supposed to be here. No one from her village dared come close to this place. They called it the living hunger, but Solari was desperate. Her small bag held only a cracked water flask and 2 dried roots. Her stomach growled. Her lips were dry. She had been cast out of the village 2 days ago. No family, no food, no one had even looked back when they pushed her through the gates and shut them. She was alone. Bird-like creatures screamed from above. Strange blue vines moved slowly across branches, almost like they were breathing. The jungle pulsed like a sleeping beast. Solari kept walking deeper, eyes wide, heart racing. Then she saw it. A fruit, glowing, hanging low on a thick vine. Her feet ran before her mind could stop them. She reached up, and that's when the vines moved. Not slowly, not gently, fast. They wrapped around her wrist, then her waist, then both legs. She screamed. The fruit was bait. The vines had tricked her. No, let me go. But the jungle didn't listen. The vines pulled her up, wrapping tighter, squeezing her chest, cutting her breath. One thick vine slid across her mouth, silencing her. Her eyes filled with tears. Her body dangled in the air like a broken doll. Help. She tried to cry, but no one could hear her. Or so she thought. Far away through trees and mist, a human named Daniel Corrin stopped walking. He narrowed his eyes. He had heard something. A voice. A scream. He was the only human on this alien planet. A former soldier turned explorer. Daniel was here to study ancient ruins. But he had grown tired of the maps, the reports, the empty rooms. Today, something felt different. He followed the sound, moving quickly between the strange trees, scanning the thick undergrowth. He passed yellow mushrooms that hissed and flowers that turned their heads as he ran by. Then he saw her, a girl, an alien girl, hanging in midair, wrapped in moving vines. Daniel's heart skipped. She looked young, small, terrified. Her body was almost completely wrapped. Her purple skin was turning pale blue, her mouth was covered, her eyes locked on his. Holy hell, he whispered. Hang on! He threw down his bag and pulled out his laser cutter. A small beam shot out, red and hot. He ran forward and aimed at the thickest vine. It sizzled and the vine jerked back with a shriek. The jungle didn't like that. Suddenly, more vines dropped from above. One whipped across Daniel's arm. Another nearly grabbed his leg. He jumped back and slashed with a survival knife. Solari watched him, confused. Why was a human here? Why was he helping her? No one helped the outcast, not even her own kind. Daniel didn't stop. He grabbed the vine near her waist and sliced it clean. The vine screeched and curled up like a burning snake. He caught Solari before she hit the ground, her weak body falling into his arms. I got you, he said softly. But the jungle was angry now. All around them, the vines were waking up. Daniel looked down at her. We need to move. Can you run? She tried. Her legs shook. She could barely stand. Right then, he lifted her into his arms. Hold on. And he ran. Through trees that whispered, past glowing roots, with vines chasing behind them like living whips. Solari's arms wrapped weakly around his neck. Her heart beat fast, not just from fear, but something else. No one had ever held her like this. No one had fought for her before. Why? Why are you helping me? She whispered. Daniel looked ahead, panting, eyes sharp. Because I heard you. And somehow in that simple answer, something inside Solari changed forever. Daniel pushed through the thick trees, vines still slithering behind him like angry snakes. Solari lay in his arms, barely conscious, her head resting against his chest. Every few seconds he looked back, checking the shadows, listening for that awful rustling sound the jungle made when it hunted. The trees finally opened into a rocky ridge. Daniel stumbled down a short slope and ducked into a narrow cave hidden under a stone ledge. Cool air touched his skin. Safe, for now. He gently laid Solari down on the cave floor. She flinched, as if expecting pain. Her eyes blinked open. Her voice was soft. You didn't leave me. Daniel shook his head. Couldn't. Wouldn't. He reached into his belt pouch and took out a small metal capsule. With a twist, it opened, revealing a survival heater. He placed it near her and watched the soft red glow warm her shivering body. Solari stared at him with wide violet eyes. You're not one of us. Daniel smirked, wiping sweat from his brow. Nope. Human. I'm from Earth. Solari had heard stories of humans. Loud creatures with rough hands and colder hearts. But this one was quiet. Kind. And his hands. They had saved her. Why were you in that jungle? He asked, inspecting the long red marks left by the vines on her arms. She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, My people gave me to it. They call it the Hunger Forest. They said I was unworthy. Daniel frowned. They fed you to the jungle? She nodded slowly. Daniel cursed under his breath. That's not survival, that's cruelty. Solari's throat tightened. She didn't know why she cared about what this stranger thought. But something about his voice felt different. Not cold, not distant. He passed her a small packet. Drink this. Electrolyte water, your body needs it. Her hands shook as she took it. Thank you, Daniel. He paused. You know my name? You said it. While fighting. You shouted at the vines. Back off, Daniel Corrin doesn't run. Daniel chuckled. Yeah, I talk to myself a lot when I'm scared. She smiled, barely, but it was the first smile she had made in days. He looked at her again. What's your name? Solari. Solari, he repeated. Nice to meet you. Even if you were hanging from a killer vine plant when we met. Her cheeks flushed a deep lilac. I didn't expect anyone would come. I screamed, but I thought the jungle would eat my voice. Daniel looked at the cave entrance. It almost did. Suddenly the ground trembled, faint but enough to send dust falling from above. Solari sat up quickly. It's coming. Daniel reached for his sidearm. The vines? She shook her head, fear returning. The roots. When the jungle fails, it sends the roots. They're worse. Daniel made a decision. We can't stay here, but I'm weak. He opened his bag and pulled out a roll of healing gel wrap. Then let me help you stand. We'll take it slow. There's a ranger post north of here. Old. Abandoned. Might still have a radio. You would carry me again, she asked, surprised. He met her gaze. If I have to. You're not dying out here. Not while I'm breathing. Her voice cracked. You're strange for a human, he smiled softly. Yeah, I get that a lot. Together, slowly, they moved toward the cave exit. Solari leaned on him, her feet unsteady. Daniel's mind raced with questions. Why would anyone sacrifice someone like her? What kind of people left their own to die? As they stepped out into the jungle edge, Solari turned her face toward the light. It was the first time she felt air not soaked in fear. She whispered, If you hadn't heard me, Daniel nodded. But I did. And that truth, simple and powerful, echoed between them. In a jungle that devours sound, her voice had found the one person who wouldn't ignore it. The jungle wasn't done with them. Daniel had only taken 10 steps out of the cave with Solari leaning on his shoulder when the ground shivered again, stronger this time. A deep wet sound echoed in the distance like trees moaning underwater. Solari's eyes widened. That's not thunder. Daniel's jaw clenched. Then what is it? She whispered. It's the roots. They come when the vines fail. They dig, they trek, they never stop. He scanned the tree line. Can they be outrun? No, she said softly. But maybe they can be outsmarted. Daniel thought quickly. He had been a soldier once. He'd survived ambushes, deserts, and alien beasts. but nothing had ever hunted him like this jungle did. He reached into his pack and pulled out 3 flares and a remote signal bomb. "What's that?" Solari asked weakly. "Something loud, something hot, something vines hate." He smiled grimly. "I'm going to draw them off." Solari's breath caught. "You'll be caught. I've got legs and a stubborn streak," he paused. "But I need you to trust me. Can you walk even a little?" She nodded, trembling. "I will try." Daniel pointed ahead. "See that ridge? Just over that rise, there's an old observation post. I saw it on my map. If we make it there, we can seal the doors." He gave her his emergency knife. "Keep this. If anything grabs you, cut, stab, scream." She held the blade like it was a lifeline. "And you?" He winked. "I'll make noise." With that, Daniel turned and ran in the opposite direction, into the jungle. Solari wanted to scream, wanted to chase him, but her legs wouldn't move fast enough. So she did the one thing she had never done before. She trusted. Daniel ran hard. Every step cracked branches and kicked up soil. He tossed the first flare into the trees. It hissed and lit the canopy, red. Then he threw the second, and then the third. The jungle roared. The vines above him twisted violently. From below, the roots emerged, black, thorned tendrils tearing through the earth like serpents. They hissed almost alive. Daniel skidded to a halt near a rocky pit. He set the signal bomb down and activated the countdown. 9. 8. He turned and sprinted. A root snapped up and scraped his leg. Blood spilled. 4. 3. He leapt over, a fallen log. 1. The explosion hit like thunder. A wave of fire burst behind him, lighting the jungle in burning red. Smoke filled the sky. Vines screeched like wounded animals. Roots curled and burned. Daniel tumbled forward, coughing, body scraped and bruised, but alive. Meanwhile, Solari limped her way up the ridge. The sound of the blast shook her to her core. The trees behind her bent with heat, but she kept moving. Each step hurt. But Daniel's voice echoed in her mind. "You're not dying out here." At the top of the ridge, she saw it, an old broken structure half swallowed by vines. Metal doors, rusted but still standing. She stumbled toward it. A root twitched near her foot. She gasped. Slash. The blade Daniel gave her sliced through it. She didn't scream. She didn't freeze. She survived. Inside the structure, she found a control panel. Lights blinked weakly. With trembling hands, she hit a red lever. The doors groaned, then slammed shut. Minutes later, Daniel arrived, bloodied, covered in ash, but smiling. "You made it," he breathed. Solari ran to him. She tried to be strong, but tears fell. "You came back." He grinned. "Told you. I don't run." She touched his bleeding leg. "You're hurt." He shrugged. "Jungle got a bite. Nothing I haven't felt before." "But why? Why risk yourself for me?" He looked her in the eyes. "Because you were worth saving. That's it." Solari had no answer, just a heart pounding with something new, something stronger than fear, gratitude, connection, hope. And as the jungle screamed outside the sealed metal doors, 2 strangers, one human, one alien, sat together in silence, alive. Together, for now. Rain began to fall, but it wasn't like Earth's rain. These drops were thick, glowing faintly green and smelled like rust. They sizzled as they hit the broken roof of the shelter. Solari watched through a crack in the metal wall, eyes wide. "The jungle is bleeding," she whispered. Daniel looked up from where he sat, wrapping his injured leg with cloth strips. "It's the roots," he said. "That explosion might have wounded them. This whole forest, it's alive." Angry. The shelter creaked but held. Rusty walls, flickering lights. A cracked solar panel still hummed weakly in the corner. It wasn't much, but it was safety, even if temporary. Solari sat beside Daniel. Her body still shook from exhaustion, but her eyes had changed, no longer full of fear, now full of questions. "I've seen humans before," she said quietly, "but never one like you." Daniel glanced over. "What do you mean?" "You didn't hesitate to save me. Not for food, not for reward. Just because." Daniel smiled faintly. "Back home we call that doing the right thing." "I don't need a reason." Solari tilted her head. "That's not how it works on my world. My people calculate value in everything, even life." Daniel sighed. Then they forgot what it means to be alive. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was soft, like a thread slowly being tied. Suddenly, Solari winced. Her arm, still marked with red from the vines, was swelling. Daniel leaned in. "Let me see." She flinched but didn't pull away. His hands were gentle even though they were big and strong. He applied a cooling gel from his medkit. Solari stared at him. "You fought many battles?" "Too many. Some I won. Some I survived. Why do you keep risking your life?" Daniel paused. His fingers stopped moving. "Because someone once risked theirs for me." He didn't say more. Solari didn't ask more. Some pain didn't need to be explained. Later that night, the rain stopped. They moved deeper into the structure. Old crates, broken machines, even a dusty cot lay forgotten. Daniel cleared the space and made a bedroll on the floor. He gave Solari the cot. "No. You take it," she said. He shook his head. "I've slept on worse. Besides, you're healing." She looked down. "You treat me like I matter." Daniel looked directly at her. "Because you do." That night, Solari couldn't sleep. She kept watching the human. His chest moved with each breath. Calm. Strong. She had never trusted anyone so quickly before, not even her own family. She whispered, "Daniel, do humans always care so much?" He didn't open his eyes, but replied, "The good ones do." In the early hours, a sound woke them both. Clack, clack, scratch. Solari sat up, frozen. "What is that?" Daniel grabbed his pulse blade. They moved toward the door. Through a crack in the metal frame, they saw movement outside. A figure. No, not a creature. A drone. A floating, beetle-shaped alien scout drone, scanning the area with red eyes. It wasn't part of the jungle. Solari gasped. "That's my clan's hunter. They must be checking if I died." Daniel's face hardened. "You said they threw you out. Now they send a machine to make sure you're dead?" She nodded slowly. "I was their shame. They can't allow me to return." Daniel stepped back and closed the metal flap. "Then they'll have to deal with me," Solari whispered, almost in disbelief. "You'd fight my own people for me?" Daniel looked her in the eyes. "I didn't save you from that jungle just to let them take you back into pain." The two sat again in silence. Solari reached for his hand. Her fingers were smaller, softer, but firm. "I'm still scared," she said, "but less than before." Daniel gave her hand a light squeeze. "That's how strength begins." Outside, the drone passed over and vanished into the mist. But inside, something else had taken root. Not danger. Not hunger. Hope. And for the first time since she was cast out, Solari whispered a quiet vow to herself. "If I survive this, I will walk beside him. Always." The sun never truly rose in the jungle. Even in the day, thick green clouds hung in the sky, making it feel like twilight. But at night, the jungle changed completely. It watched, it breathed, and it hunted. Inside the old outpost, Daniel checked his weapon's charge again. The faint hum of the pulse blade made Solari jump. She had wrapped herself in a thermal blanket but still trembled, not from cold, but from what she could sense outside. "The roots," she whispered. They never sleep. Daniel stood near the doorway, eyes scanning through a narrow gap. Let them come, he said, voice low and steady. If they do, I'll be ready. Sci sat quietly for a moment before speaking again. There's something I didn't tell you. Daniel turned, eyebrows raised. Go on. My people, they didn't just send me into the jungle because I was weak. She swallowed hard. They said my blood was different, my body reacts to old technology. Machines from the ancient wars. They were afraid of me. Daniel walked over, crouched in front of her. So you're connected to ancient tech? She nodded. When I was small, I touched a broken machine. It glowed. It responded to me. Ever since then, they called me a danger. Daniel looked thoughtful. Then he smiled softly. Sounds like a gift, not a curse. Sci blinked, surprised. You're the first to say that. Just then, the outpost, lights flickered. Then, shut off completely. Darkness. Solari's breath caught in her throat. It's here. Daniel activated his helmet light. A sharp beam lit up the room. On the wall, vines were moving, not just hanging, slithering, slow, patient, and hunting. Daniel moved fast. Basement. Come on. They climbed down into a lower chamber, dusty, filled with crates and debris. But in the center stood something strange. A machine shaped like a throne but fused into the wall. Glowing lines ran across its surface. It was old. Very old. Sci stared at it, frozen. I've seen this in dreams, she whispered. It calls to me. Daniel looked from her to the machine. Do you trust it? She nodded slowly. More than I trust the jungle. Then she stepped forward and placed her palm on the control panel. The moment she touched it, the machine lit up with soft blue light. Energy surged through the room. The vines above screamed and snapped backward. The floor rumbled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Daniel stood back in awe. Solari's eyes glowed faintly. She gasped. It's showing me something, a path, a way out. Underground. Daniel moved beside her. Can you guide us? She looked at him with new strength in her eyes. Yes, but we have to move fast. They gathered what little gear they had. Daniel slung his bag and gripped his weapon. Sci led him to a hatch hidden under an old metal crate. With both hands, Daniel heaved it open. A long tunnel stretched below, dark, cold, and narrow. Sci hesitated. If we go in, we may not come back out. Daniel nodded. Still better than waiting here for roots to eat us. She smiled. You really don't fear anything, do you? He looked at her, serious now. I fear losing the people I care about. Her heart skipped. Without saying more, she took his hand, and together they climbed down into the dark. Inside the tunnel, the air was heavy and full of ancient power. Lights flickered on the walls as Sci passed. The system recognized her. Daniel watched her with quiet amazement. Do you think this place was built by your ancestors? Sci nodded. Before the tribe split, before the fear, we were one people, connected to the machines. But they forgot. They feared what they didn't understand. Daniel touched the wall. Then maybe it's time they remember. Suddenly, the ground shook again. The tunnel ceiling cracked. A massive vine root burst through behind them, twisting, roaring, filling the space. Run! Daniel shouted. They sprinted down the corridor, feet slipping on the metal floor. The root chased them like a giant snake, smashing walls behind them. Ahead, a blue light glowed. An exit? They reached it. Daniel dove through first, pulling Sci in behind him. The tunnel collapsed. Silence. Then, wind. Cool, dry wind. They had emerged on the other side of the ridge. The jungle was behind them, and in front, open plains, glowing towers in the distance, untouched by vines. Solari stared in shock. This is a forgotten city. Daniel smiled, breathing hard. You found it. Your gift saved us. She looked at him. No, you saved me, and made me believe my gift was worth something. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. You're not alone anymore, Solari. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. Wind whispered across the ruins of the forgotten city. The air here was different. Dry, still, clean. No vines, no poisonous mist, no screaming roots. It was as if the jungle itself feared this place. Solari stood in the soft light of the twin moon, staring at what lay before her. Tall crystal towers covered in alien runes, walkways made of glowing stone, and machines half buried in the ground, still alive after centuries of silence. Daniel stepped beside her, eyes scanning the strange technology. You sure this place is safe? He asked. Solari nodded slowly. I don't think the jungle can enter here. This city was built before it turned wild. It's like it remembers who I am. Daniel raised a brow. You? She glanced at her hands. Not me exactly, but my blood. My ancestors helped build these walls. The machines recognize it. They moved forward into a broken plaza. Lights flickered on as Solari passed. Daniel followed closely, limping slightly from his earlier wound. They found a round building with doors that opened silently, welcoming them. Inside, a large silver chair stood in the center, surrounded by floating crystals. It's a core chamber, Solari whispered. It connects life forms to the city's system. Daniel looked uneasy. What kind of connection? She turned to him. A bond. A deep one. Mental. Physical. It links thoughts, emotions, even survival. He frowned. Sounds dangerous. Solari stepped closer. It's also the only way to activate the city's defenses. If we do this, the jungle won't be able to reach anyone again. Daniel looked at her. Really looked. I've only known you for days, he said. But I feel like I've known you for years. She finished softly. He didn't speak. He just nodded. Solari reached out her hand. Daniel took it. Together, they stepped into the ring. The chamber came alive. Lights spun. A low hum began to rise. The floating crystals lit up one by one, glowing bright blue. A pulse of warmth passed through their joined hands. Solari gasped. It's happening. Daniel felt her thoughts inside his own. Memories of fear, shame, loneliness. But he also felt her strength, her fire. Solari saw him too. The soldier's pain, the old battlefield scars, the burden of saving others while feeling empty inside. And she felt something else. His choice. He had chosen her, not out of duty, not out of pity, out of something real. The machine pulsed again. Their hearts beat in sync. Then the crystals merged into their skin. Gentle light weaving around their hands and forearms like glowing vines. A deep voice echoed in their minds. Bond confirmed. Life force linked. System online. The city lit up. Defensive shields rose around the walls. A distant shriek from the jungle echoed, and then faded. The hunger had been shut out. Later, as they sat beneath the stars on a quiet balcony, Daniel broke the silence. So, we're bonded now. Life linked. Solari nodded. You can hear my thoughts. I can feel your pain. He looked at her with a soft grin. Then I better stop thinking how beautiful you are. She flushed deep purple. Too late. They laughed. For the first time in what felt like forever, it wasn't the sound of fear, but of healing. Solari leaned against his shoulder. Do you regret it? Not for a second, he said. If anything, I regret not finding you sooner. She smiled, eyes glowing faintly under the starlight. But now, she said, we're part of something bigger. This city, it's not just a shelter, it's a beginning. Daniel looked out over the horizon. Then let's build it right this time. No fear, no sacrifice. No more girls fed to the jungle. And no more good men fighting alone, she whispered. They sat together in silence again, hearts calm, souls bound, not by blood, not by species, but by choice. And somewhere far below, the last vines of the jungle curled away from the city's light. Morning came quietly. For the first time in years, the jungle did not howl. The wind carried no cries, no rustling vines, no poisonous spores. Only light, golden and warm, fell upon the ancient city where two unlikely souls had changed everything. Daniel stood at the city gates, watching the forest from a distance. He held his blade loosely at his side, not in fear but in memory. Behind him, the air shimmered softly with energy from the city's protective dome. The jungle could no longer pass. Silari approached, wearing a robe woven from old ceremonial cloth found in the ruins. It flowed around her like soft starlight. Her violet eyes, once full of sorrow, now glowed with quiet strength. "You're leaving," she said softly, stopping beside him. Daniel didn't look at her right away. "Not leaving. Just watching." She waited. Finally, he turned. "I keep thinking about how close you came to dying there. Alone. How close I came to walking past without knowing." Silari reached for his hand. "But you didn't walk past. You heard me." He nodded. "And you saved me too. In more ways than I thought possible." They stood in silence for a moment, no need for words. Their bond still pulsed beneath their skin, faint blue light gently glowing like a heartbeat. That afternoon others arrived, alien scouts, survivors, exiles from Silari's people, those who had escaped the cruelty of the old system. They had followed the signal broadcasted by the reawakened city, a call of safety, a call of change. One of them, an elder, approached with slow steps. "You are the girl who was thrown away," he said. "And yet, now you lead us?" Silari didn't bow. She didn't tremble. She simply stepped aside, revealing Daniel. "I do not lead alone," she said. "We survived together. This city accepted us together, and it will rise again. Not under fear, but under bond." Daniel gave a small nod. He wasn't a king, or a hero in his eyes, just a man who heard a voice and refused to ignore it. The elder lowered his head in respect. Over the following days, the city came alive again. With Silari's touch, old systems reactivated, clean water, lights, defenses. With Daniel's guidance, they trained a new guard, one that protected, not punished. The jungle remained on the horizon, wild and silent now, watching, but no longer ruling. At night, Daniel would sit on the same balcony. Silari would rest beside him, shoulder against his. They didn't always speak. They didn't need to. Their silence was no longer empty. It was full. One night, as the stars lit the sky like glowing dust, Silari turned to him. "There's something I never told you." He raised a brow. "Oh?" She smiled. "Back when I was a child, I used to dream of someone from another world, someone who saw me not as strange, but whole." She paused, eyes glistening. "I thought it was just a story my mind made up to survive the pain." Daniel reached out, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "Then maybe I was dreaming too. Of someone who would make me believe again." Silari leaned in. Their foreheads touched. "I don't want to walk behind you or ahead of you," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Then walk beside me." And from that day forward, she did. Final scene. Years later, when people would speak of the city and the light, how the jungle fell back and a new world began, they would mention two names: Silari, the girl who was thrown away, but Rose, Daniel, the human who heard a single cry and turned it into hope. But the most beautiful part of the story? They walked side by side, always,